What's up, everyone? Tyler DeLuca back here with my top 3 takeaways from this past week in the WNBA. And I'm going to start with some frustration. I am. Teams wasting big-time performances. That is where my frustration lies this week. And expand that out even more. Not the bigs. Let's formulate this. Because the bigs have been disrespected this week. Let's talk about 3 of them. First, let's talk about A'ja Wilson. One of just an incredibly dominant offensive performance against the Dallas Wings. 42 points. She keeps doing these type of things. And it feels like they continue to be wasted. And there's really... You're the Las Vegas Aces. You're the 2-time defending champions. You're the best player in the world. And the Dallas Wings, who don't get me wrong, with Satu Sabali back, they are not the worst team in the league. They are not. And their record is... I mean, this is a playoff team last year that kept a lot of what they had last year, and were just decimated by injuries, especially early on. Just now getting Satu back after the Olympic break, and I mean that's an all-star player right there. So no doubt that the Wings are better than their record suggests when Satu Sabali's in the lineup. So I'm not even... Certainly you don't want to lose to the Dallas Wings at this point in the season. You don't. And it felt like potentially after the win against Chicago, where A'ja Wilson gets the game winner, and struggled, frankly, through that game more so than we are accustomed to seeing A'ja Wilson struggle, but gets the game winner, and it felt like, okay, maybe this is a breath of relief for this Las Vegas Aces team, and instead, we see just a total waste of an all-time A'ja Wilson game, and it's frustrating to watch, and I can imagine for the Aces themselves, it's got to be incredibly frustrating to experience that you're not making use of these all-time performances from A'ja Wilson, and it's catching up to them. They're in a battle for home court right now in the playoffs, and the playoffs should be stacked this year, and especially if you're going against the Seattle team, who has been inconsistent in their own right at times. You're gonna want that home court advantage. And right now they are struggling to do so and to find that consistency. And listen, you never want to peak too early, but the Aces just need to start climbing to a peak. And right now they are struggling to do so outside of A'ja Wilson. And it's been very interesting to see and finding it feels like it's on the defensive end for me. But right now it's this is the roster that you're working with, and how can you adjust? That's the question that needs to be answered for the Aces. Another team that wasted a phenomenal performance was the Atlanta Dream. They are in a battle right now for that final playoff spot, and frankly, it feels like with the on paper talent on this roster that they should just be comfortably in the playoffs at this point. Maybe a 6 or 7 seed, but they aren't. And Tina Charles puts up a triple-double, the first in Atlanta Dream history, the first of her career, and it goes to waste. And it was against a good team. Don't get me wrong, it was against a good team in the Storm. But the late game execution for the Dream is something that has been an issue, continues to be an issue, and was an issue in this game. I think at times there was a lot of just putting your head down and just kind of taking the first shot as opposed to swinging the ball around and seeing what you can get. The final play where Gabby Williams gets that steal, that's great defense from Gabby. I didn't love the formulation of the play to begin with, but ultimately Gabby Williams looked like prime Darrelle Revis out there. Like, if she picked that ball off it was crazy. It was crazy. Gabby Williams' island was in full effect. So I try not to be too frustrated at that. But for Tina Charles to be 35 years old, to have been on this comeback journey, to have a triple-double, an all-time game for her. And she's had plenty of stat-filled games. And to not pick up that win when it was right in your grasp is incredibly frustrating. Especially when the Sky are on a downward slope currently with their current form. It's been a struggle for them, and we're going to get to that. And to see that game, that performance go to waste from Tina, just feels brutal. And I say that to say this, because we're going to pivot a little bit for the final point, but I say that to say this, is that these are teams that need momentum. And these are momentum-gaining performances from A'ja Wilson and Tina Charles. And the surrounding pieces aren't doing what they need to do to capitalize upon that momentum going into the final lap, if you want to say, of this WNBA season before we get into the postseason. So I just want to see these teams take advantage of all-time performances that we're seeing on the court right now. Because there's no reason in the same week we should see two performances like that go to waste in that way. And we did. And that's, like I said, just from thinking about it from the fan perspective of those teams, it's got to be incredibly frustrating. Thinking about it in-house for those teams, especially for the individual players that I've discussed, that has to be incredibly frustrating. And knowing what's on the line, the pressure has to be stacking. And it feels like they have not been able to find relief for that. And speaking of finding relief, and the last player that I want to highlight and touch on today in a different way, because she hasn't had these all-time performances that I just discussed, but she also, it feels like, hasn't really been given the opportunity and given the prioritization within the team to have these level of performances. And that is Kamilla Cardoso. Because there's no reason for Kamilla in a game against the Mystics to have only 4 shots. There's no reason for Kamilla to be leading the team in assists with 6. That she still got a double-double, and the defense is what it is. And it's very good. Like, we are very well aware of what Kamilla brings on the defensive side of the ball. But at some point, with her passing ability, with her scoring ability, with her size, with her footwork, I think the Chicago Sky, not saying you have to prioritize her for all 40 minutes, not saying that at all. What I am saying is, I feel like there has to be an element of have Kamilla post up, get her the ball, and go from there. She's a playmaker. She can go get her own bucket. She can facilitate and get someone else theirs. She draws so much attention in with the size that she brings. She can run the floor and get easy buckets that way, but I want to see more in the half court, especially where the Sky have found themselves struggling at times. I just don't see a world where it's not a benefit for Kamilla to be getting more touches in that way. And not saying to force it or anything. Like I said, not saying to do it all 40 minutes. But there has to be a little bit more wealth shared her way, in my opinion. And I think that it could raise the floor for the Chicago Sky team that has had some very high moments this season, but the floor has also been low at times. And trying to raise that floor to make it into the playoffs feels like the best way of securing that spot. And I feel like Kamilla Cardoso on the offensive end can be a floor raiser that has yet to be explored in deep depth so far during this season. So I just want to see her just get some more shots up. Just get the ball in her hands, and she's shown that she will make a play. And I just want to see her have the opportunity to do that even more. So right now, my frustration across WNBA is in the paint. Whether it's not allowing for these big-time performances or not capitalizing on these big-time performances, those were my top 3 takeaways from this past week in the WNBA, and I'll see you next week.